part of Asaki, host of A Dog's Devotion. What if I told you that one of the most captivating artists in the world wasn't human? That behind the brushstrokes, the color, and the creativity was a small capuchin monkey who once knew fear, instability, and a life far from safe. But this story carries something more. Because recently the world said goodbye to Pockets Warhol. And today, we're not just talking about how he lived, we're honoring what he left behind. This is a story about rescue, about healing, about trust, rebuilt through love and patience. Because when an animal finally feels safe, they don't just survive, they can thrive, and they leave a mark. And Pockets didn't just create art, he created connection. He opened hearts. His paintings can be found around the world, and he has some pretty famous followers and fans who own his work. Pockets help people see animals differently, shining a light on the exotic trade markets, which are still so prevalent around the world, with more exotic animals dying in transport than people realize. We're basically taking these animals away from their home, from their parents, who they kill so that they can have the babies. I hope this story opens your eyes to what is happening in this world and what's happening to these animals and how they suffer for our enjoyment. Today's story may not be about a dog, but it is exactly what A Dog's Devotion stands for. Welcome to A Dog's Devotion, where we share powerful, real-life stories about the incredible bond between humans and animals and how through love, both are forever changed. But today's episode is different. It is a tribute, and it's not about a dog, but a very, very special monkey. I'm joined by Charmaine Quinn from the Storybook Farm Primate Sanctuary, the woman who stood beside one of the most extraordinary and unexpected artists the world has ever seen. His name was Pockets Warhol. He was a rescued capuchin monkey. He began his life in uncertainty, but through compassion, safety, and unwavering care, his world transformed into one filled with creativity, expression, and trust. Although Pockets has sadly recently passed, his story continues to inspire and his impact is far from over. So today we honor his journey and his muse, Charmaine, who's going to join me today. We're going to talk about how we met and how Charmaine really devotes so much of her time to animals. And I mean all sorts of animals, from monkeys to donkeys to dogs. She is just a woman with so much love and compassion for animals that what she stands for is really what A Dog's Devotion is all about. So I'm thrilled to have you here, Charmaine. First of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry about Pockets. I was lucky enough to meet him and see you with him at the sanctuary, and we're going to start about how we met, which is an incredible story, but
Right.
at least I got to experience Pockets firsthand, and he was just such a love.
He was. He was very magical. He was like a little he was the funniest monkey I ever met too. So he had a great sense of humor.
Yeah, he was really special. So let's talk about how we met, because this is kind of an interesting story. It sort of shows how the universe works.
Right.
I had just come back from a month in Bali. I was getting over a bad relationship. While I was there were monkeys everywhere. I went and volunteered at a monkey sanctuary, and I came back to Toronto and I said to myself, okay, I need to find a monkey sanctuary where I can go and continue my work with monkeys, because it was just so special to me. Monkeys to me there's some animals that you connect with, and monkeys are just to me an incredible species. And so I got back to Toronto. I think the next day I arrived from Bali. I went to get my hair done from a salon that I've been going to for 20 years. And I'm talking to Primo, who's my stylist, and I'm saying my trip and I need to find a monkey sanctuary in Toronto. And lo and behold, who's sitting beside me but you? And I think you overheard me talking about the monkey sanctuary. You introduced me to Diana from the Storybook Farm Primate Sanctuary, which is, I guess, northeast of Toronto, right?
Right.
And then I started volunteering, and it was amazing, but it's all because of you, meeting at a hair salon
I know.
just by
Serendipity.
chance. And it was just so great. That's how you and I met. Now let's talk about Pockets. Can you take us back to when Pockets first came into your life?
Okay, so he arrived at the sanctuary about 17 years ago.
Yeah.
He was sort of he had been originally as a pet, so I had been at the sanctuary at that point, maybe 5 years ahead of that. So, when he arrived as a former pet. So, he had originally been in Seattle as a pet to a young girl,
Yeah.
and then I'm not exactly sure how he ended up in BC, but either they couldn't take care of him and they transferred him to another woman who took care of him there. So, he lived basically as a pet to two families, to this
Right.
woman who had him for probably I think he was 18 when he arrived at the sanctuary. So she had him for quite a while. She couldn't take care of him anymore because of health issues and travel and things that she was doing. So she decided to bring him to Storybook Farm. She had called the Jane Goodall Institute and they said to her that this was a monkey sanctuary because there are no monkey sanctuaries in Canada.
I
They're all there is the chimpanzee sanctuary in Quebec. They had a couple of monkeys that have since passed, but this is the only monkey sanctuary. And in BC, it's illegal to own a monkey. So any exotic animals, they have a province-wide ban there on exotic animals like monkeys. That's the only province that does. So I don't know if that was also part of that, but she
Mhm.
did bring the monkey Pockets to Storybook Farm. She stayed a few days there and
Oh, nice.
transitioned him in to staying, because
Yeah.
now he's got to move and now live a life in another place.
Right.
So originally when she had him, he was just a pet there, but he all he had really was a guinea pig and a television. So he lived in a home. I don't know if he had an outside enclosure. I'm not quite sure about that. So the problem when people keep them as pets is that they're raised like humans and they don't know they're monkeys or, like in the primate world, they don't know. So that's a problem because now you've got to introduce him to be with, a monkey family,
Mhm.
other monkeys there. So he had sort of settled in, but I mean, he had a lot of human people coming over contact with people. Basically, Pocket saw himself as a human, I would say.
You did.
Yeah.
Did he settle in okay at the sanctuary? Because the sanctuary is not a single person's home. It's
Right.
filled with monkeys and lemurs, and he had animals all over him. Was that good for
Right.
him, or was that not?
Well, he lived there, but I think because of the human contact,
Yeah.
he probably adjusted because there was a lot of people coming and going. There was another monkey beside him, Mr. Jenkins,
Yes, I remember
and
Mr. Jenkins with
right,
the long
Jenkins, the
fingers.
spider. Yes, it's a spider monkey beside him, and there was also Chico, another capuchin monkey on the other side. So he would often tease them and play with them, but I don't know if he was doing it because, I'm not sure how he saw them in his eyes because he had never been exposed to another monkey.
With your personal experience, and I know you do a lot of volunteering, especially in Belize, at
Right.
the it's at Wild Tracks, I think.
Yes, at Wild Tracks they
Wild
have howler
Tracks.
monkeys there, spider monkeys.
Do you I mean, what's your view on having monkeys like Pockets as pets? And I know a lot of them are used for lab testing, and
Right.
that's a different story completely, but do these should they be pets? Is this right or wrong?
Well, I mean, I know that people, it's probably done because they don't understand what the process is and what goes on, that they have to actually kill the family troop to get a
Right,
baby monkey because the mother will never let the monkey go.
right.
So now you're killing other monkeys to take that baby and then translocate it to wherever it is going. Most of the animals that are in that process of the exotic animal trade die en route. So
They
maybe
do.
one might survive of many. I think that Pockets would have been taken from 1992, that's when he was born, that he would have been taken from South America and shipped as a pet into Seattle, and then that's how it would go. So Pockets would have been really, he should have been living in a forest, like he would have been
Mhm.
with his troop family. Instead, now he's in a sanctuary, and somebody, he started off in two houses, and now he's in a sanctuary. So,
It
you
doesn't
know,
seem fair to me.
it's not like, they are wild animals, and I know people
Yes.
love them, as pets and things like that, but they're not really, The whole process of the exotic animal trade is brutal. It's a lot of them, really don't make it. So I know people, it's almost like a puppy mill basically
Yeah.
for exotic animals, right? They're running these sort of the trade in wildlife, which is second to the drug and arms trade.
Is it really?
Yep. Yeah.
It's that big?
They ship parrots in plastic bottles. I mean, only because I've been sort of involved in this for so long, and I know what goes on. I worked up, I did it in Borneo. I took care of orangutans there for 7 years back and forth. I would go like a month to 2 months a year there and
Right.
saw orangutans coming in that were former pets. And, they have to kill the mother to get the baby orangutan. So a lot of those orangutans were often shipped to Bangkok. They've had the Taiwan 10, the Bangkok 6. They were orangutans that were shipped in boxes marked jewelry, and all of them, usually most of them died. Maybe one, if one survived, then they would make money on that. But most of them would die en route. So
Because what do? You put them in boxes and put them on the plane and they can't
it
breathe? Is that it?
right, right. And they tape their mouths and things like that.
Oh,
And they were shipped upside down. So, that's another thing. It's like, they're thrown in a box and then who knows what happens when they open it up. Like, I mean, most of them just aren't alive.
yeah. See,
You
like,
know,
this just bothers oh my god, this makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, it's a brutal business. I know that it still goes on.
Yeah.
I try to, we always sort of said this about the monkeys at Storybook, is that most of them are coming in from that trade,
Yeah.
and it's very prevalent in Canada still. So there are no laws about keeping exotic pets. It depends on each bylaw. Like in Toronto, you can't own them, but outside the city, you can.
Right, and, I remember that because remember the IKEA monkey?
Right, because we
And
have our
you have him, and Max loved him. That was the only he if I walked by his cage, he would run away because he did not like humans, but
right.
my dog Max would go outside, and he would sit out and play with Max through the fence.
Yeah,
But the woman who owned him had to move out of Toronto outside of the city where they did allow exotic pets, if I remember
right. And
correctly.
she has many more at this point too. She has monkeys again because she moved into an area that they didn't have a bylaw for owning monkeys like that. But she owns a lot of other animals, like parrots and things like that.
Right.
But there was one monkey that we had named Rudy, who they found him in a shipping container, like in a locker area. Like, where you park, I don't know, off the highway, there's like you park your car in there and leave it for a winter. So they found him in those like a storage area with a lot of other animals, and he was not in good shape. I
Not
don't
a
know
good
actually how he pulled through, but he was in terrible shape when he arrived. And that's a lot of the way they come in.
so what do people often misunderstand about primates like pockets and their need for rescue? I mean, we're just talking about this now in the trade and how it's so popular. Do you think that the common person realizes what's going on and how these animals suffer?
I don't think a lot of people are aware of it. And if they are, it might be just fueled by greed to have an animal like that. It's like when people buy a dog, like there's so many rescues that need homes, but
Yes.
they want to be like breed specific. It has to look a certain way and things like that. So you're fueling that business instead of helping an animal that needs a home. You keep it going by the breeding. I'm totally against that. No, because all my dogs, I just adopted one from Korea. I've had another one that was in she's 19, my dog, the other dog, and came in from a puppy mill in Quebec with 550 dogs that were found in cages
Oh
there.
my gosh.
So she deals with arthritis because she lived on a wire cage for 5 years
Yeah.
as a breeding female. And they just took her puppies, and then that would be her life until they went in there and closed it down and transferred her to Ontario. So
Oh,
it's like that with primates and many other animals. Like they just found, I think it was 31 or 32 sloths dead in Florida.
oh
I don't know if
no.
you saw that. Yeah,
I
they
didn't
stole
see it.
them. It just came in a couple of days ago. the news about that. They stole them from the wild. They shipped them over and they put them in an area where like a I don't know, like a storage area. They didn't have the proper facilities, the lighting, and they all died. So
What
here
is someone gonna do with 20, 30
they were
sloths?
going to, I think like something like a sloth world or like some, thing that people can visit,
Well,
sloths. It's some sort of like a parrot world or things like
right.
that. Yeah, and then they all died. Yeah.
People have no idea. Pockets, obviously, we talked about how he moved from home to home, and who knows what his situation was like.
Right.
It takes a little while to gain trust. How did his healing journey what did it look like, and how did you begin to become his muse and to gain his trust to be able to go into his cage?
Well, when he first arrived, I was sort of like there volunteering and I would go play ball with him because he did human things, right? He would kind of throw the ball like a child would do. So I
Right.
would throw it back and forth and I thought he's really smart. And because I had volunteered at the zoo for many years at that point, I used to see the orangutans and the gorillas painting in their holding areas and I would be like, "Oh my god, they're painting," right? So I thought I wondered if for him as a form of enrichment, if he would enjoy doing the painting. Now I
Yeah.
had no idea because I had tried with the other monkeys and I put things down and I slid it under the cage, the enclosure, and they had no interest. And then I put it in pockets and I sat on the floor and he went and sat on the canvas and then he started to paint, and then he started to put his hands through the paint, and I thought, "Oh boy!" But then I saw what he was starting to create at that point, and then so for quite a while, I was like maybe a year or so. I sat there at the cage and put slide the paints in with the canvas, because I would choose the colors, and then what I was doing was because I thought he looked like Andy Warhol
Yeah.
because the face, the hair, and all that. I sort of would, jokingly say that, I attached the Warhol name. There was nothing in the news at this point. So, but what I was doing was I was taking the colors of Andy Warhol's works and putting them on the canvas and measuring them up so that they would be like kind of like a Campbell soup, but by Pockets Warhol.
Right.
So it was more for a fun thing, and then I had about 40 canvases put aside, and then somebody on Queen Street at Sadie's Diner said, "Do you wanna help put the paintings up just to bring some money in for the sanctuary?" And I said, "Sure." At this point, they were just sitting around, and then I put them up, and then the Toronto Star put them on the front page. Then I mean, I used to get the Toronto Star, so I looked at it, and then my husband, who worked in media as well, and which
Yeah.
who you knew, he said to me, he said, "This is going to be all over the world." And I said, "No." He said, "Yes, once Canadian press picks it up, then he said it starts to travel, right?"
Yeah.
So at that point, it started to move, and that was how it was sort of like his whole career in artwork started.
And it just really exploded, and I mean, how it must have taken you a lot of work, but how did you get there's a lot of famous people that know Pockets and have his paintings.
Right. So I started to once this happened, I arranged to meet Jane Goodall through the vet that our present vet now, who was in
Yes.
part of her Roots and Shoots program. So he organized that for me, and I
Wow.
chose the colors of David Greybeard, which was Jane Goodall's chimp that started her research at Gombe. And I met her privately to give her the painting. And at that point, as soon as that went to her, then it started to trigger other things. So I started to contact different people. Then Ricky Gervais got involved because I gave a painting to Esther the Wonder Pig, who was
Esther.
famous.
Yes, I remember
Yes.
Esther.
Right. And then Jane Fallon, Ricky's partner, became interested in pockets. And that it's interesting because um a lot of women follow pockets more than the men. And because they call that the cute response. So a lot of women are attracted to primates because they have big eyes and big heads, almost like babies.
Yes, it's
So
true.
right. So she sort of started following, and then he became involved. And then I sent them a painting, which sort of triggered things again. And then I started contacting different people. Belinda Carlisle got involved because she saw his artwork online and she fell in love with him and her husband, Morgan. ordered paintings for her birthday, and that's how we got involved with her. And then she did a collaboration with Pockets. He's been, the drag queens have them. RuPaul drag queens, two of them have his paintings. I sent
Wow.
one to Chris Hadfield, named Joanna Lumley, like all these people that were sort of attached through other people too that I knew, somebody that knew Margaret Atwood said, got that for me. Like, so it was people that sort of helped me along. And then I would contact different people to see if they would like his artwork. And then which sort of resulted in the Depeche Mode Martin Gore cover album
Oh,
as well.
that's right. I forgot about that,
Right.
Charmaine.
So he did the whole Martin Gore contacted the sanctuary, and then they sort of said he's interested in doing this with you with Pockets. So I contacted Martin Gore and I said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I just need a 10 by 10 painting. I'm thinking of doing my solo album, and I'd like it to be the cover." I said, "How about I give you 5 paintings and then you choose what you want and what to do with them?" And he used everything. He used all the 5 paintings in the front, the back, the remix, the videos. So I was doing this with Martin Gore for about 6 months back and forth. I said, "Why don't you name all the paintings? You choose the colors." So it was back and forth. What do we do? What are you doing with this? Well, choose this, put more pink, but we always used the same colors, but we
Yeah.
adjusted them.
Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot about that. That's amazing. Do
Yeah,
you
so which landed him in Rolling Stone, Variety, Billboard. So as soon as he ended up in Variety in Hollywood, here comes like the Saturday Night Live producer
Yeah.
asking for a painting here. So it kind of kept going. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Really? This really spiraled into something quite incredible.
Right. So as soon as things like because I knew that if people like that had his artwork, other people would want it. Like I mean, people had it, but I knew that it would be quite desirable to know, okay, well, Martin Gore has paintings. I want a painting. So I knew that it would
Yeah.
help. The more I sold paintings, the more money came to the sanctuary. So
Oh,
to date,
um,
he had raised about $300,000 to help the sanctuary. In there as well, I would send paintings to other animal rescue organizations that contacted me. So there was like Frankie and Andy Senior Dog Rescue in the States. Ricky Gervais got involved. I sent one to Feline Friends that made, 5,600 to help his cat rescue. All Dogs Matter. So I would send artwork to a lot of these people as well to help them because I knew that a lot of these dog and cat groups were struggling.
yeah,
So that he helped a lot of animals basically.
he did.
Yeah.
And do you think he was expressing something through his art?
I people have asked me that and I used to watch him because I would stand beside him and I would be almost like I'm not quite sure how he looked at me like a friend, a mother, what was going on there, but my reaction when he would paint would make him more interested in painting. So I would put the paint down and I'd be like, "Oh my God, look at that's beautiful." And then he'd start painting. So I think when it's almost like if somebody has a child and they're encouraging, like, "Look at that, that's beautiful,"
Yeah.
rather than just like, "Here, they take the paint and just sit down." But I think that as somebody standing beside him, because if you see videos and pictures, he's often looking at me, smiling because he's reacting to me like a mirror image, which is how
Right.
primates look at each other and how they learn. So they learn through mirror image fashion. So they look at your expression and then they become that. Like a mother would smile at a baby, then the baby smiles.
Right.
So that created that.
How did people connect emotionally to his work? When you sent paintings off to all these people you mentioned earlier, what was their reaction?
They became very, very attached to Pockets. Like, I mean, Ricky Gervais had 4 paintings. I mean, Belinda Carlisle, she had many paintings as well. And she was also involved because she ran Animal People Alliance. So I would have him do paintings to help raise money for Animal People Alliance, which they save rescue dogs and cats in Thailand and India.
Right.
So she's the co-director to that. So, these things when he was doing paintings, they were going to like it was always something good out of it, right? Like there were people that were involved in helping animals, so I'm so proud that the result was that he helped a lot of animals out there
He
through that.
did. He
you
did.
know? Yeah.
Pockets did a lot.
Yeah, he did a lot. There were so many people that, like even the owner of Jared Blandino of Too Faced Cosmetics was a friend of Belinda Carlisle. So she introduced me to Jared Blandino. So, had him do a painting of his dog Clover of the colors, and that went to his home in California. Then she introduced me to Trixie Mattel. Then he did the painting for Trixie Mattel, who put it up
Yeah.
on Instagram and a video, and him opening the painting, and Bianca Del Rio. And, these people were all sort of tied into other people, sort of like they saw it, they want, and then I'm like, would you like a painting? And then they're like, yeah, of course I'd love a painting, right?
He used to paint with his fingers, and the look on his face when he was painting, it was mischievous, but
Yeah.
happy, and he was so intent on the colors and the strokes.
On him at three universities, they did
Yeah.
studies. He was part of University of Strasbourg did a study, University of Utrecht, and he's currently in one at University of Stanford. So what they were doing
Hmm.
was they emailed me and they said, "Can we need like at the University of Strasbourg, they were studying the strokes of his artwork. So he's in a few journals right now, just based on what they found looking at his art, because they said his artwork was when he would paint, he would keep it into the center part of the canvas. So he was aware of the borders. So they knew that by
Right.
looking at him and seeing when he was painting. He
Yeah.
wouldn't kind of just go like, oh, it's over here, over there. He was
Right.
paying attention to where it was going on the canvas, which is
Yeah.
interesting because that's, and the one at the University of Strasbourg, they studied children's art. So they were trying to figure out the correlation between primate and non-human primate art, and trying to figure out like what is it that what are we seeing now? Because, Pockets, it's not like he went to art school. He just
Oh,
naturally liked to paint, just like some humans like to paint.
yeah.
And people painted on cave walls. Somebody had that ability to do that.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
natural.
did they
Yeah.
come up with any kind of correlation between a small child painting and a monkey?
Yeah, they mind. I think
Okay.
it's like the mind of a child. Picasso used to say that. They said if I could paint like a child, that would be like it was a famous quote he did that because a child's artwork is almost like a pure form of art.
It is.
It's not studied or anything. So Pocket's artwork wasn't studied. It's coming from something else. Right. It's something when he sees the colors and the paint and everything, what he's creating. Like, I mean, I would never be able to understand what was going on in his mind, but I
Right.
knew that he felt that there was something creative that he was doing. So, for him to look at that, move it around, to, move it over here, move it over there. It's like a child that, sitting there doing artwork and they're just intent on doing it. It's not that there's no plan or not, doing anything specific, but something inside them is creating something abstract.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been described as his artistic muse.
Right.
So what did that relationship mean to you?
Well, it was a bond that was so tight that I had with this monkey because I was involved for 17 years, basically. When I met him, I think it was about a year after I started giving the paints. So we were tightly bonded with all the art, the connection. Like I said, he wouldn't paint with anyone else. So there was something in our relationship that he felt comfortable that I would be inside that at some point I started to go inside, and then I knew when I went in once and I was standing there and he put his hand on my boot and I thought that's the start now. It's
Yeah.
like, so as soon as like a primate, like if they put their hand on you, it's like it's a form of a friendship.
Oh,
So
interesting.
as soon as that happens, you're like bonded now, right? It's like, that's it. So I knew at that point that it was going to change the way the art looked because now I'm inside there and
Right.
he's now standing on a table and he's doing it, or he's sitting on a table doing it. So it's for the CBC documentary they did with him. They put a camera and they put a camera inside a white, like a box, basically, to film to see exactly how he was doing it. But
Oh,
that's how it was done.
he got so much attention in the media, so well deserved.
Yeah,
And
I'm so proud of what he did. Yeah,
I
I'm so
know you should be. And not only was he a great painter and artistic and the cutest little capuchin monkey I've ever seen, um, but what did he teach you about connection and patience and love?
Oh, you know what, I loved him so much, and well, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of that love was based on, that I just knew that he was special. Like it's almost like when you have a bond with any animal, or you have an intense bond. I knew it was there long ago, and then sort of like I would watch him and see him, and the thing is that, the animals do live in the moment. They're not really aware of yesterday or tomorrow. So I love that whole it taught me how to try to be in that moment with him when I was working in there doing with that, because I was watching him and he was enjoying it. So sometimes you forget about life and you kind of, you worry of like what's going to happen here, but they don't think
Yeah.
like that. So you know, I learned a lot from him from that, because of that, because he was like, so sometimes I took all his pictures and videos. So I have often, would put things up and I would say, I'm just a simple Buddhist monkey, because I often thought he was like a monk. He was very spiritual, I thought. And interestingly is that when he had passed, they said they found crystals in his ashes.
You told me that. And what
Right.
does that mean?
Well, according to the Buddhist philosophy, if they find crystals in the ashes, it means that you're a higher form of being. So it
Wow.
wasn't a surprise for me to see that. Like when she said, we have something here for you," because I arranged everything to go there and do it privately. And then she attached this letter from the Buddhist monks, about the ashes, and went about finding these crystals in there, which are then they are blue, orange, cream colored. There's a whole history to these crystals. So they're found in some animals have it, some don't. But they, according to that, like they're supposed to be here to teach you something and be like a higher. They believe that he was a higher form of being
Oh,
because
well,
of
look
these crystals.
at the crystals. I've never heard that. I'm gonna have to do some research on that. That's really interesting.
It was interesting because when I looked at them, I thought, "Oh my god, that was almost like the color of the painting he did for one of the
Oh,
girls at CTV," and I think it was the orange and the turquoise, and yeah, it was so interesting to see that they found those in there, and, that's what they gave me the letter attached to it about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
What no, I don't wanna dwell on his passing because I know that's really hard and it's still quite recent, and you just had an open house at the sanctuary,
Right.
the first one where Pockets wasn't there, and
Yeah.
I can only my I actually sent you an email because 'cause I'm thinking about you today because I know it's not gonna be an easy day dealing with loss and grief, as you know well enough. It's hard.
It's very hard.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's been like, I can only say, like, my mother used to always say this. She said, "You love that monkey more than you love me." And I'm like, Ma, no, it's like a child, right? Like I was, it's like a little child. I couldn't compare that because I had such an intense feeling for him because he was like a child. So when he arrived, he was the same size he was when he passed away. So I saw him always the same way. He was
Yeah.
almost like Peter Pan in a way, right? He was almost like never I never expected him to die because he seemed
Um,
almost like a like magical in a way, right? So I couldn't sort of get my head around the fact that he was 34 and he was aging, and I wasn't prepared at all for, I knew that he had cancer, but then I thought, "Oh, they'll fix it," right? Like you
yeah, of
always do that with anything
course.
that you love. You'll have like, "This can be fixed, we'll fix it and it'll be okay."
Yeah.
And then I had to deal with the fact that 5 days after they found that, they did a biopsy and he had cancer, and he had passed away the day after. I spent time with him during the week after the surgery, and then he passed away the day after. Yeah, I left there. So it's been very difficult. It's been a strange sort of
Yeah.
transition to know that, I would never see him again.
Mhm.
And then, but I have pictures of him here all over the place.
And
I
he
still talk to him. I still bow to him. Interestingly enough, is that people, when I would tell them on open days about the things that he created and how many animals this monkey saved, because if it wasn't for Pockets, the sanctuary would have been closed
Yes.
because of the people that followed him in the news. They saw me on CP24 asking for help and they were going to close everything.
Yeah.
And they brought Pockets up and they said, "You're the muse of Pockets and you need help." And then I'm basically begging for somebody to come and help. And the husband and the wife that followed Pockets in the news already were the ones that helped to save the sanctuary. And Dinah helped as well, like in the as a at the time she was volunteering and then ended up being director and helping out
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
His memory will last forever because of through his paintings and through
Yeah.
you telling stories like this, and I think that's really important.
Yeah.
What other than his paintings and everything, obviously, he was a very special monkey. What do you want people to remember most about him?
I think, like, the painting was part of it, but his personality was like, I think a lot of people felt, although I'm speaking for basically for the monkey, in my mind, this is what he would be thinking, because he was a joyful monkey, he was a happy monkey, he had a sense of humor. So I try to keep all that going based on the fact that I think his personality, attracted a lot of people, like the pictures, the videos, he would play with his toys. And I want people to remember the painting was part of it, but him as a being was pretty spectacular. Like he was sort of like, he was just different. He was like a little child. So, and I think a lot of people could sort of relate to that. His reactions were like childlike. He would
They
laugh.
were.
He would pull the tail of the monkey next to him all the time, and then he would sort of hide in the corner laughing. I was like, I would watch him, right? And I thought, I bet if he had been like a human, he would be as a child, he would be like teasing little girls at the school.
Oh,
I
yes,
can
he'd
see
be
him
a little
doing.
troublemaker.
He would be the troublemaker, right?
Wasn't there a monkey, around him named Elvis?
He was Elvis originally, and then he ended up being Chico. That's
Chico,
another
okay.
monkey that was originally Elvis, and he was kept in a bird cage in, I think it was Stony Creek at a plant store,
Oh
and
my
for years
gosh.
he was there, and a lot of
So,
people came
that
and
is so
they
unfair to
I
keep him in a
know,
bird
a
cage.
bird
That's
cage.
a monkey does not belong in a bird cage.
They do keep them like it's like a display. It's like they and people can laugh and they go like, "Oh, ho, ho," and look at, it's a monkey and but they don't realize that these animals, they are sentient beings and they feel anything like any animal.
Yeah,
Like I don't look at animals as being, anywhere below. If anything, I look at them as being above us
I agree.
in a spiritual way. Like they're far, like you don't see animals hurting each other, right? So
No, it's
I look at
humans.
them as like a higher form of life. So I think, but people can't seem to look at that. They can't get there yet. And it's unfortunate, because they treat them like clowns and things like that, even like in monkeys in Indonesia, they put, makeup on them and they
I
make
know, and
like clowns,
clothes and
stuff like
yeah,
that. The orangutan group that I was involved with, they brought in one, that they used her in you don't even want to know
I
what they
don't
did with this monkey, but I mean, it was a orangutan. But they could never release these monkeys. That's the problem too, is when you
right.
keep them as animals, as pets, they're not releasable. So I volunteer sometimes at the Center for Great Apes as well in Florida. So I've gone there to help make enrichment for the monkey. They have Bubbles there, which is Michael Jackson's chimp.
Oh, that's right, they have bubbles there.
They have Bubbles there. So she has a lot of these orangutans and chimpanzees that were in the entertainment field. So you'd see Passion, the orangutan that was in the soap opera Passions is there, Bam Bam. So the one that was in Dunstan checks in, but a lot of those animals that are used in entertainment are often beaten to do
Didn't
what
you
they're
tell
doing.
me that There were 2 orangutans that were in that Clint Eastwood movie, and one of them was
Yes.
beaten to death.
Yes, yeah, with
Yeah,
a steel, like, he would wrap a pipe in newspaper and hit him because they don't it's not natural for them to do what they want them to do. It's like Mr. Jenkins, the spider monkey, the one that
yeah.
we have. They used him in a commercial. They tried to get him to pick up a phone, and he wasn't doing it, so they threw him in an auction. That's how he ended up at Storybook.
Oh,
He was at an
I didn't know
exotic
that.
animal auction, and the previous owner saw him there and brought him to Storybook. So, it's unfortunate for all these animals that sort of you're expecting them to be what they aren't like that. They should be living like their life in a forest. They're not supposed to be sitting there in jean shorts like Bubbles and answering phones and sitting in trucks and movies. They're not
Yeah.
that's not their life. So
So it's
to get them to do that, they have to beat them
they
usually.
beat them, which
Yeah.
just so, to me, and I'm sure you agree, it's important to educate people about exotic animals and rescue. I don't think the general public realizes what they do to these animals, how they
Right.
suffer, what goes on in the States and in Canada, because there's a lot of exotic trade. I know you and Diana used to tell me stories about the trade shows that you would go to and find
Right.
these animals, the ones they use for lab testing, and then
Right. Then they just don't.
people need to people learn that, these aren't they're not pets, and
No.
your daughter wants a monkey, you don't get her a monkey, go get her a stuffed animal.
Right. And people still come on open days at the sanctuary and they're like, I want to buy a monkey. I'm like, you want to buy a monkey? Okay, let's go down and see that baboon.
Yeah,
This is what you're going to have in your home. This
yeah,
olive baboon is, from Africa, originally from Africa. These are not animals that are in any way should be in a house with children. Any animal like that. But they still think it's like they see them on TV and sometimes they put them on, in shows. And Marcel was in Friends, and then everybody thought, oh, they want a capuchin like that. Oh, they're cute and everything, but they have to remove the teeth. But Pocket's teeth were removed.
they
His
were?
canine, yeah, so he didn't have canines. They removed them. I don't know if they were removed in Seattle or in BC, who removed them, but when he came, he didn't have them because they can pack a bite, like if they
Yeah,
bite you, then you're in trouble. And a lot of the macaques too, they can carry herpes B, which is fatal to humans. So if
right.
you've got a Japanese macaque and they're carrying the virus, they all carry the virus. But if they're shedding the virus and they bite you or scratch you, then it's fatal for you. And people aren't aware of that either.
Actually, when I was in Miami, there was a gentleman that had a small monkey that looked like Elvis or
Okay.
Chico,
Oh, yeah.
and with the mohawk, like, he
Yes.
was the cutest thing, but he had him on a leash and chain like a dog, and he'd have him
Right.
sitting on his shoulder, and he would walk around through the bars, and everybody
Right.
would wanna take a photo with him, and it was just so wrong to see
And
that.
I know that people they love monkeys and everything like that, but and I mean I loved Pockets, but I mean I would rather have not seen him stolen from a forest, which is why I go to wild tracks and do that because
Yeah,
that's what happens there. I see it coming in with the howler monkeys. They kill the troops and everything. I mean, I've tried to make his life as kind and as best as possible under the circumstances, but he should never have been in a sanctuary doing artwork. He should
yeah,
have been with his mom in a
his
forest
mom,
and a troop
yeah,
and be a father to other little capuchin monkeys and live the life that they were meant to live, not live in a sanctuary or like even at the Center for Great Apes. I mean, she's got, I don't know, 80 there, I think, of chimps and orangutans and the people she finds them in garages and things like that. And that's not like it's selfish, right? It's a
yes, it is.
selfish sort of, for you to do that because you're putting yourself above the animal.
Yeah,
So your pleasure is now above their welfare.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so many of them die in transport, as we
Right. And
said,
they
and
die.
die in captivity because
Yeah.
they just can't.
Yeah. I mean, they found a gorilla when I volunteered at the zoo. They told me the gorilla keepers told me that they found an owner that had one in the garage and they went into the garage and it was dying. It was a young gorilla. I
He
don't know.
kept him in his garage?
Yes, that would be years and years ago in Toronto. Maybe they smuggled that gorilla in there, but I remember the keepers telling me that it was just awful for them to see that.
A gorilla does not belong in a cement garage.
Yeah, but that's back then, like in 19 it might have been in the 70s when they did smuggle animals in, gorillas, orangutans, monkeys. They did it, it was quite prevalent back then. I think it was a lot of, people that wanted pets and then they didn't know what could, I'll order a gorilla. I think the one that had Darwin, the IKEA monkey,
Yeah.
she because I used to listen to because I was part of that court case listening to all the interviews, so
Yeah.
I admit everything to them. She originally wanted a chimpanzee, but then she thought, well, maybe it'd be too wild. And then she's like, okay, well, maybe a spider monkey. Well, then maybe not a spider, maybe this, like she moved it around, like, okay, maybe a macaque,
Right.
which was like, she had watched a video of a macaque in Japan opening up a beer in the fridge, and she thought that would be fun, it'd be like, oh, like a clown again, right? And
Yeah.
that's what
So
she
sad.
wanted. Yeah. So we don't even know where Darwin came from. He might have come from Japan, smuggled in,
Right.
you know?
How can people help continue to keep his legacy, Pocket's legacy, ongoing?
Well, I think, you can still see his artwork. He's still part of the world, I guess, because his artwork
Yeah.
is everywhere. I mean, with being in so many magazines, and it's just his legacy sort of, well, like a friend of mine said to me, she said, in 50 years, his artwork will still be there. Right.
Yeah.
It'll still be Martin Gore's cover album. Like that still goes into the future, all his work, and then people can look at that and still think about helping a sanctuary, if it's not our sanctuary, helping wild animals,
Hmm.
keep the forest going and for the future, keep the animals safe and protected. The problem when I used to go to Borneo was that they had a law to protect the orangutans, but they didn't have a law to protect the forest. So they deforested their home. So the orangutans were considered, protected, but there was nowhere for them to live now because they cut down the forest.
Right.
So, it's like it's a matter of trying to keep things going. Like at Wild Tracks, they have a protected forest. So they're in a soft release program, and I help the ones I used to help in the nursery group, but then I help in stage 2 now. So those are the ones getting ready to start moving forward and going to a release site at some point.
That's
So
great.
yeah, so I work in a forest area with those ones, because I like being in the forest area, right? So
Yeah.
but it's different stages because they have to do it slowly. They can't just rescue a monkey and then put it back in a forest. They don't know how to live.
No, he wouldn't survive, would
They
he?
wouldn't survive. They would be like, I don't know what to eat. I don't know what the foods to eat. I don't know there's other monkeys there. They have to be able to survive before they go. So they monitor them. If they're not doing well, they come back to the sanctuary, relearn things, try to get them going again. So there's always a monitoring group there.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. And what's the success rate of getting these monkeys back out into the wild where they belong?
Well, it depends. Like for like the orangutans was not successful at all. They had a very high mortality rate because the mothers have them for take care of them for 6 to 7 years. So they're with the mother for that long, usually hanging around the mother till 9, but they nurse for 6 to 7. So to take an orangutan and try to teach that information is near impossible. So a lot of them that would go back wouldn't make it. Then they'd have to see a snake. Well, what's a snake? They don't know a snake, right? They would have to see these things and what fruits to find. And very difficult for orangutans to survive. Howler monkeys, it's different because they eat foliage. That's their main diet. But
Right.
orangutans, it's more fruit. Yeah.
Oh,
So they have to search more.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that I got to meet Pockets and spend some time with him and see him
Me too.
painting. And it's
Too.
something that, I mean, that was how many years ago, Charmaine, that I was in Toronto
Oh,
doing that?
that would have
I
been
think
maybe
10,
10, maybe I
10
would say.
years ago. And I still have vivid memories of him
Yeah.
finger painting and a very special time. So I want to really appreciate you coming on and talking about Pockets. He was
Oh,
an
well, thank you.
amazing
I mean, I
monkey.
just I just love the work you do. You're just like so remarkable that you keep this going because a lot of people it's not easy for people. Like for people that care, it's hard to watch animals suffer, right? So like
Yeah.
you have to go through this with a lot with the dogs, and I'm going through it with like other different, I mean, I'm involved with the donkeys and the
Yeah.
monkeys, and like, so whatever and animals that we're involved with, it's very difficult to kind of always try to keep, positive, because you do see a lot of sad things.
I
And you're
know.
doing remarkable work helping educate people and keep that moving, because if people don't, then they don't know. A lot of people just don't understand the tragedy behind of a lot of these, like for dogs, like I said about a puppy mills and these kind of situations, exotic animal trade. It's like, so for education wise, it's important for people to keep doing it. It's as difficult as it is.
Mhm.
I said this to somebody at the hospital where I work. A rabbi came and I said, it's a curse to carry. He said, it's not a curse, it's a blessing. Because he said, now you know you're alive because you know that you care. And it's hard for anybody that's involved in this work, because it can be very, very distressing, right? Because animals do die, and they, sometimes it's not good. But you
There's some
have to kind of
awful
keep,
things.
yeah, like, somebody asked me that, and I said, I think the love outweighs the sadness, is how I try to put it, because
Mhm.
I know that my love for animals, as your love for animals, has to outweigh the sad part, or you can't do it,
Yeah.
right? So you have to keep it going based on that. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me and
Oh,
sharing your
thank you.
story. Pockets Warhol's life is proof that love can transform even the most uncertain beginnings, because we really don't know what his beginning was all about. And it could change it into something extraordinary. I mean, he arrived in this world needing safety, and he left it having given so much and saving so many other animals through his art, his spirit, and his journey. He reminded us that animals feel, they heal, and they trust, just like we do. And while he may be gone, the story doesn't end here. It lives on in the awareness he created, in the animals still waiting to be rescued, and in the hearts he quietly changed along the way. And if this episode touched you, please share it, because stories like Pockets are how we inspire compassion and how we create change. This is a dog's devotion, where every story, no matter the species, remind us what's important. And as you said, it's the love that we carry for these animals, even though there's so much sadness. Thank you, Charmaine.
Thank you so much for having me. I just loved it. Just great.
Okay, it was great to see you again, and you take care.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap on another unforgettable story from the heart, because when it comes to love, loyalty, and second chances, no one does it better than our dogs. They find us when we're lost, lift us when we're low, and teach us what true devotion really looks like. Thanks for listening, and remember, in this wild world, we're all just trying to find our way home. Sometimes it takes 4 paws to lead us there. So give your pup an extra cuddle today and cherish your time with him. Give him some extra treats too. I know he'll love them. This podcast is in honor of my best buddy, Max.